Assalamu alaikum everyone, welcome to another lecture. This time it is a totally new topic that concerns the novel and its evolution. Today's lecture is entitled The Rise of the Novel. We'll try to introduce a historical account about the evolution of the novel from its early seeds and precursors till modern times. In fact, here we need first to decipher or decode the term novel. The word novel, in fact, is not originally an English word, but it was originated in the Latin language from the word novellus, and also later it was used in the Italian language with the word or its counterpart, which is novella, and in both languages the word novellus and novella here they refer to a small new thing, any small new something that is new and small, right, or short, and also later it appeared in the French language with the word novel, and here still its use was confined to the concept of something short or small and new. Now, it was for the first time, the word novella used to indicate short tale in prose. It was the first time used thanks to and by the Italian famous writer Boccaccio, who lived in the 14th century, from 1313 to 1375. Boccaccio was the first writer who used the term novella storia. He used the term novella storia. He was an Italian writer, of course, clear to indicate a short tale or short story in prose. He was, of course, trying to compose something in prose, and he wrote his first short story and gave it the name novella storia. Novella storia. Still, we have here the term novella, not novel. Here, Boccaccio, of course, wrote a collection at the time of 10 stories, of 10 short stories, which were short, entitled Decameron, exactly in the 14th century, and these stories and their collection, in fact, made the fashion or the act of writing collections of short stories at the time very popular, thanks to the collection of short stories written by at the time by Boccaccio. Now the word novella kept, of course, developing to become later the term novel. But the term novel also was used with the sense of always short story or short tale in prose till almost the 18th century. The 18th century witnessed a shift and a change in the essence of the word novel. Before 18th century, the novel or novella or novellus referred to what? Short story in prose. But from 18th century on, the term evolved and developed to indicate the modern form of the novel of today. It means a long narrative prose writing. Long or prose narrative of considerable length. Clear? Right, good. Now, the new established novel in the 18th century with its long narrative prose structure, of course, witnessed growth and witnessed also popularity and prosperity and became dominant thanks to, of course, many factors and circumstances. We'll see them later. But historians, in fact, and critics consider that the earliest seed and precursor of the novel, modern novel, was in the old classical Greek and Roman epics. Then it also continued with the medieval ages romance. Why? The epics at the time, they were what? Epics were what? Were poems. They were long narrative poems. Now, why do historians consider that that long poem was the origin of the modern novel? Although both of them are different genres. Okay. In fact, the old epic was long poem in structure, but in terms of content, if you can say, it shared with the novel, with the prose writing, with fiction, many characteristics. It was an epic poem which contained narrative structure. It means there was story. There was in it a plot. There was in it characters. There was in it length. It was as long as the novel. Not like the other common poems, which were short. That's why the epic was very similar in many aspects to the modern novel. And that's why critics consider it as the precursor of the modern novel. Also, romances were also poems appeared in the medieval ages, and also they were concerned with narrating stories about chivalry, about knights, and so on. And many of them were at the time were issued in the form of episodes. Clear. That's why also the romance, medieval ages, contain the same elements also of the modern novel. I mean, the characters, the plot, narrative structure, length, clear, and so on. So, just here we have to be very cautious, clear, or very aware about the early origin of the novel. It was the ancient Greek and Roman epics, and then medieval romances, and then, of course, the novella storia, which came with Boccaccio in the 14th century and kept evolving till it gained its newly form and essence of long narrative piece of prose writing. Good. Now we come to the technical and academic definitions of the novel to distinguish it from the other forms of literary expression. According to the shorter Oxford Dictionary, the novel is what? Is a fictitious prose narrative of considerable length in which characters and actions are portrayed in a plot of more or less complexity. So as you see here, we have many elements and aspects mentioned of the novel. We have plot, we have characters, we have, and so on. Also, the Britannica Encyclopedia also defines it as a novel is a sustained story which is not historically true, but might very easily be so. There was also a notion of here imagination, notion of fiction. Always is adherent and stuck to the concept of the novel. Fictitious or imaginative make-up story of prose form or structure. Also, M. Foster, the famous critic and essayist, defined novel in his famous book, Aspects of the Novel, as follows. Fiction, he said that it is fiction in prose of a certain extent. Of a certain extent means it speaks about length. And he adds that the extent shouldn't be lower than 50,000 words. So the novel here has characters, according to him, has a plot or plots, and also has a setting. Right. Also the famous writer D.H. Lawrence defined it in an aesthetic way. An aesthetic way when he said that the novel is a one bright book of life. One bright book of life. Right. Good. Now, for the elements of fiction or of the novel, of course, they are the same elements of fiction to explain in our previous lectures. You can go back to them. Lectures or the elements represent setting, time and place, characters, the plot, I mean events, point of view, narrator, and also theme. So these are called the elements of the novel, right? And also they are called aspects by other critics, aspects or elements of the novel. They are explained in details in my previous videos in the course of elements of fiction, right? Now we come to compare and distinguish between the novel, novella, and short story. Short story, of course, you know it. Nowadays, it's a very short tale. Edgar Allan Poe said it can be read within one sitting of almost 1 hour and a half and or between half an hour and 2 hours hourly. Short story, what do we have? We have only a few characters, very few characters. Also, it contains one simple plot, and it covers pages from 1 to 30 almost pages. Now the novella, compared to a story, in fact, it is a bit longer than short story. It covers pages from 60 pages, almost 50 pages, till 120 pages. It has also more characters than short story. It has also one plot, but it is more complex than the plot of the plot of the short story. Its also characters are more complex and are more developed and mature and are evolving and growing relatively comparing to the short story. Clear? Whereas the novel, compared to the short story and the novella, it is longer than novella, with more characters, with also more than one plot, many plots. They are interrelated. They are a bit complex compared to the novella and short story. Clear? Also, the characters comparing to the two other forms in the novel, characters are more complex. They are growing, more developing, mature. They also go through a long journey of evolution, of growth. Clear? For the length also of novel, it can be from more than 120 pages on. It means it's open to the writer to write a novel as long as he likes. Clear? As he likes. Right. So these are the major differences between the novel, novella, and the short story. The novel, as you see, is the longest form. Clear? More complex form, more detailed form, with more characters and more complexities than the two other styles of prose writing. Jungle. Assalamu alaikum everyone. We continue always with our lecture about the rise of the novel and its evolution. In fact, this evolution was a long journey since the ancient Greek epics and the medieval, as we said, romances, till the novella storia of Boccaccio in the 14th century, until the 18th century. 18th century, when the novel got its full, mature, right, and complete form of today. Now, we need to go through the historical evolution of the novel before the 17th century and also analyze together those factors which led to the retardation of the rise of the novel. Why did the novel rise only almost in the 18th century and not before? What factors hindered and obstacled its popularity and its prevalence at that time? In fact, the 17th century in particular was a century of instability and conflicts and trouble and troubles also, mainly at the time in England. Clear? And at the time, the novel, or the word novel, meant, till that time, meant short story. It wasn't, in terms of concept, that mature and full form of the novel of today. That's why it was not very popular and it was not widely read among the audiences, the audiences. And in fact, there were many factors which led to this slow pace of its popularity, and if you can say retardation of growth till the 18th century, which was the century of its rise. Those factors which led to the, if you can say, shrinking, or led to the decrease in the popularity of the novel, were in fact four major factors. The first one, in the 17th century and before, there was the dependence, or much dependence, on the tradition of storytelling. Storytelling. It means people at the time loved and used to hear and narrate stories just orally. And they used to hear to the stories, not in the form of written novels, but to hear them in their plays, in the songs, and the epic also poems, orally, right? So the old tradition was predominant, and those stories were mainly containing or discussing religious issues from the Bible, right, or moral also didactic issues or lessons, but were not about daily life and every, if you can say, every daily life event or lifestyle of people and commons, like what we find in the novel of the 18th century. Clear. So there was much dependence and much preference of the old tradition through those plays and those epic poems they used to hear, and they contained oral stories. Another factor also was the limited literacy. Limited literacy. It means not all people at the time could read and write. They were only the wealthy and the aristocratic class who were able to, and the elite also, to have good education, whereas the masses were illiterate. They could neither nor write. That's why they relied always on oral tradition to share stories and to exchange stories just orally or verbally. Also, another factor which was the expensive printing and the high cost of books at that time, the 17th century. Book was not affordable for everyone, and this, of course, led to the decrease of popularity of the novel at that time. It appeared in the 17th century, but it was not widely read and didn't rise as in the next century, 18th century. Last but not least, we have the society's preferences or preference. At the time, society and people, most of them were interested in stories about great heroes, about kings, about gods, about monsters, and so on. But there was no interest in the stories of daily life, struggles of daily life, common people, which were the center of news at the time, because there was still, you can say, spirit of medieval ages was still dominating the scene of writing with those religious and romance wrote texts and stories. Till the 18th century, when conditions changed, there was a huge revolution and evolution in many domains, which led and which imposed the novel and led to its rise comparing to the previous two genres, which were drama and poetry. They were people popular in the past. They were drama and poetry. But after the 18th century, the novel took over this position and dominated the scene and could attract all audiences, all classes, and all ages due to these factors.